So with all that said, I know you are super excited. I'm super excited to get some inspiration from Sammy. He's going to be bringing us Brigitte Bardot-inspired layers and face frame. So please welcome the co-founder of Samvia, the chief creative officer of Samvia, and Redken's global art ambassador, Samvia. You're on mute. Stop muting your mic. How many times do I have to tell you, you don't have to mute yourself?
Well, you know what, Andrew? I thought, oh, I got to get this email out. So I'm typing this email and I thought, oh man, I just got to talk it out. So I put my mic on mute and opened up my computer mic and just started speaking my email. So my apologies, buddy. But anyway, enough of that intro stuff. I'm excited to be here. Listen, you had a great Wellness Wednesday last week. I just want to compliment you on that. And then, guys, if you're not checking out the Journeyist on this Sunday, you got to check it out. Andrew's going to talk about that at the end. But that's super, man. I just love what you're doing on the Journeyist, Andrew. So kudos, buddy. You cultural ambassador, you. We love you, bud. Hey, listen, today's all about Brigitte Bardot, guys. And if you don't know who Brigitte Bardot is, Andrew's going to bring it up. I want you to Google Brigitte Bardot right now. Just Google her, all right? Because you got to take a look at her. Whether you do it on Pinterest or whether you go and just Google it, take a look at Brigitte Bardot. Now, I really believe, Andrew, the past is where we learn and the future is where we apply that. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean this in a way, guys, where a lot of people say, Sam, where do you get your inspiration, guys? I remember when I used to do Fashion Week in New York, these designers would tell me, because I'd ask them, guys, where do you come up with these ideas? And they said, Sam, fashion is a repetition of the old and the new. He goes, there's a cycle that we look at. When something becomes 10 years old, listen to this, guys. When something becomes 10 years old, it becomes fashionable again, or we start to look at that decade and we use it as a resource of inspiration. I thought, oh, okay, got it. But I think that's where that phrase comes from. The past is where we learn and the future is where we apply it. So what I'm trying to get, guys, is don't forget about the past in terms of inspiration. Okay, there's things about the past I do want to forget, but when it comes to the inspiration side, I do a lot of research. And right now, my muse is Brigitte Bardot. And let's bring that up, Andrew, and take a look at Brigitte Bardot, buddy. But it's Bardot inspired. Now, these are 3 looks that Andrew, the art team, and myself that we did in some of our photo shoots. And you can see here, these are kind of Bardot inspired shapes that you're seeing, a lot of it. And Bardot inspired, what I mean is I think about 2 things. I think about a bob sitting on a shag or a shag. I think of volume, and then I think about these curtain fringes and a Bardot fringe, which I'm going to talk about. That's what I mean by Bardot inspired, and you're seeing a little bit of it here. But Brigitte Bardot, she comes from Paris, guys, and she was more of a sex symbol back in the 1950s and the 1960s. And if you're Googling her now, you'll kind of see it, just a blonde bombshell back in those days. But in the 1950s and the 60s, she was the one that everybody looked at. And kind of like how we now might look at, who would we look at right now, Andrew? God, there's so many people right now that you look at. But let's take a look at the next slide. This is the shape that I'm going to be doing for you. And this, believe it or not, is a shape that I did back in 2010, 10 years ago. I did this shape. And it's basically, if you take a look at it, which I'm starting to see a lot now, and obviously I'm going to do a little more of a modern version of this on this, but if you take a look at it, it's kind of a bob and a shag where there's this hybrid action going, where you're kind of getting this action of this bob. So guys, if she pulled that back and put it in a ponytail, you could see her in a bob. So there's duality in this in regards to the way this worked. Thanks, Andrew. There's duality in this in terms of that. And I think I wanted to present this because I think a lot of people are looking for that, Suzanne Quinn. They're looking for that. They're looking for duality. They're looking for simplicity. So I think simplicity is today's brilliance. Let me just say that again. Simplicity is today's brilliance. People in their life in today's world are looking for things to be very simple. You know, we're so stressed and so fast-paced, just make it simple. So now when you think about that, salon owners and stylists, you've got to keep things simple behind the chair. I think in today's world, as a hairdresser at the chair, you need to be an educator. You need to really teach them. So I'm not talking about teach them how to cut, but I'm talking about give them the why, what you're going to do, and then teach them how to work with it. And we'll talk about that. So I just want to give a shout out also to my mother-in-law, Evelyn Norris. Hi, Evelyn. She just had a birthday. We celebrated on Sunday. And love you, Evelyn. Glad you're watching, my dear. All right. So let's talk about it first. Let's go to the sectioning on this particular shape. And what are you going to be working with, Sam? You're going to work with wet or dry? Today, guys, I'm on this journey of exploring the idea of working from wet to dry. So I really believe that, once again, it's about maximize your time. Minimize, get this one, Suzanne, minimize your work to maximize impact. So you got to minimize things to maximize the impact. So watch the impact I'm going to get out of this haircut, and just with minimal type of work in regards to the way I'm working. So I'm going to work a lot with condensed shaping, meaning I'm going to take large sections and cut them at once. But by taking large sections, I'm going to get softer edges. So remember, that's the reason for it. So let's take a look at the sectioning here. And I'm going to step to the side. When I bring the sectioning up, I want you to take a screenshot. So take a screenshot of that, guys, right now. I'll step over to the side. But when you look at this sectioning, what I want you to look at is I want you to look at, basically, I'm taking a horseshoe section on this particular shape, okay? So that's a horseshoe section. But look at what we do at Sam Villa. We take our side section a little bit further back. This is something Andrew developed within our cutting system. But we really believe we take this back. It really helps to support this area when we tend to layer. It supports this area in terms of being able to have some weight in it. When we section right over the ear like we've been taught, what happens is I find I get too dense and too much of a transparent hole behind that ear, which I'm not looking for. Look at this particular section here, guys. So it's not straight, it's arced, okay? We know for a fact curved lines are softer, straight lines are harder. So by doing it this way, I'm going to get much more of a, when I elevate this, as you'll see in step one, I'm going to get more of a round collapse in my shape and my graduation. And by doing that, if you ever have anybody that has a bulk of weight back here, a round section like that, because of the way I'm going to elevate this, takes this center back shorter and you're releasing more weight there. So if you're learning so far, just type yes. And if you know who Brigitte Bardot is, or you've Googled her, type yes. I just want to see where we're at in terms of people knowing Brigitte Bardot. All right. Secondly is this now. Let's talk about salon reality. And SQ, get this one. What I discovered is the number one request today when the consumer goes into salons is layers. The number two request is trim it. The number three request is a bob or a version of a bob. So I think you're starting to see hair get a little bit longer. Okay. You're starting to see people ask for layers. That's why I really believe we're moving back into this idea of natural texture and natural movement. And by the way, watch how I'm going to work with this. Work to wet to dry. I'm basically just going to really work a lot with my hands, a little bit with maybe some tools, but we'll see when we get there. Here's my sectioning. Take a look at my sectioning. You already took a screenshot of the visual here, back there. But here's the sectioning now. So what I'm going to do is, as I did this, working wet to dry, set this. So I basically set this in barrel curls, guys. And I'm just kind of like, once I'm there, as I get ready, I'm just going to get some nice soft movement out of that, which is basically what I'm looking for. I mean,
I just wanted to pop in. Don't skip over this. This is huge right here, Sammy. This is like, when I saw you turn that around, setting that up so that the shape is actually being built as you work.
Well, Andrew, you know what? It's that concept again. Once again, the reason I decided to do this, brother, is because you want that natural movement. And then I'm thinking right now, the word that's in my head is a lot of express. How can I help our colleagues save some time? Mm-hmm. And doing this, I'm finding, Andrew, look, when I comb through this, it's not tangled up. And I thought, why wasn't I doing this before? So natural progression of things, right, buddy? All right. I'm going to work with my dark comb because I'm working with dark hair. Dark comb gives me a transition. Okay. How many people typed yes in there? Good. Come on. Do you know who? Hey, Adina. What's up, beautiful Adina Doss? Redken artist. Follow her. And make sure you check her out in terms of when she does a class. But I think the idea, guys, is who knows Brigitte Bardot? Just type a yes in there. Yeah, Dina, organic texture is right. I want that. Okay, good. Jorge. All right, Jorge. ¿Cómo estás, Jorge? Jorge Perez, a Redken artist and a Sam V ambassador from Puerto Rico. Make sure you check out his upcoming class. So Sam, if these get in your way, what do? Just unravel and put it back up. So I'm going to lift that up higher there. Look at that. See that? So I keep my barrel curl going, and Sam, but you know what? This is wet. You're going to pull the barrel curl out. Guys, stop over judging it. Just relax. Just get some nice movement in there. Just going to encourage it. All right, here we go. Let's get going now. Let's get cracking here. All right. I've got this half moon section, let's call it. So Sam, how short do you take this? Well, she wants to leave this length or maybe take off about an inch of the length. Okay. So she wants to leave that, but maybe about an inch. So I know that if this is the length, let's just take that. Look at what I did. Take a section. I know I'm going to elevate this, elevate it vertically. See that? So I elevate this vertically. Adina, my mannequin straight up. Check it out. Okay. So I elevate that straight up. Now I'm going to cut a horizontal line here. So when I elevate this, this is where it falls. Natural fall is there. But when I elevate this, now I'm going to bring this back to a square back line, to a square line here. So when you look at this, here's step one. Take a look at the visual here, Andrew. You can see that from behind that ear, I'm over directing this back. And I'm going to cut a square straight line here. I'm going to give, it's going to be a little bit more diagonal, excuse me. So I'm getting a little shorter here and longer out here. Why, Sam, are you putting length out here? Because I want length behind the ears, guys. Remember, look at this hairline lifts up. So rather than just cutting this square, let's give you a square back view of this. Rather than cutting this square, I'm going to cut this like this. So it does this, okay? So I need to divide that in half, all right? And I'm going to elevate vertical. Okay, look how I elevate vertically. And now look at the line. Now you can see why I have a black comb on blonde hair. Okay, so now that's the line I want to cut. But where's my guide? Let's talk about that. Okay, let's take this. I know that I can lose an inch. So if I bring this up and I say I can use an inch, then I know, see this? Look at me lift here in the center. I lift this up, then I know, okay, that's how much hair I'm going to be losing. So let's create a guide. Let's go diagonal and cut that. So now look at the guide. See what I just did here? See that? Look at this guide. There's my guide. You can see how I'm getting that layer, guys. Okay, so let's go center. Okay, drop your comb. Pick it up and sanitize. Here we go. Okay, notice how, look how I'm combing. Fine teeth of the comb. Still kind of combing and elevating vertically. Now watch. My short piece. I'll see my short piece, looking for that. Andrew, it's one of those days.
Sammy, put some glue on it.
I know. I got to tell you, buddy. Looking for the guide, looking for the guide. There it is. There's my guide. All right. Let's just hold on to it so I can see it. There it goes. Boom. There's my diagonal. Okay. So now look at the diagonal I'm cutting. Okay. See that? Now this is going to put more length out to that edge and take the center just slightly shorter. Okay. Now I don't need to get these layers so short in here, guys. They can actually, could you take it shorter? Yes, I could take it shorter, but if I take it shorter, what am I going to lose? You're going to lose some length. So always judge that length, perimeter edge, in terms of what's the desired end result in terms of what you want to keep. I'm working with our 7-inch swivel today. Okay. I happen to love this year working with this. I mean, just a signature series in the way it fits, forward thumb set, but a swivel allows me to get in a position so I can keep my wrist straight, guys. So if you have any wrist problems, swivels are really great for you. Now look how I maintained my length, but let's take a look at the layering. So let's look at this vertically. What did that do? If I go in, take a vertical section, and I comb this out, look at what I cut. I just cut this short to long. What's so cool about elevating vertically and cutting horizontally, they're two symmetrical lines. But the angle that I get when I release it is short to long. So rather than taking vertical sections and cutting this way and over directing the center to get short to long, I'm going to elevate vertically and cut horizontally. It's a lot more consistent for me in terms of when I work with it. Okay. So what was my elevation? Type it in there. What was my elevation? Okay. What was my elevation? My elevation was what? What kind of line do you see here? This is horizontal. Okay. That's vertical, and half of that is 90. So I elevated this what? Type it in the chat, guys. What did I elevate this? What kind of line do you see here? Starts with a ver and ends with a, what's up, Roger Molina? Roger, you're on board, brother. Thanks for being here. Roger Molina, a Samvia ambassador. And don't forget, Roger and Ellen coming up. That's a vertical line. So I elevated vertically, okay? I give you a profile view of that. And then my angle that I cut was diagonal, guys. So I went diagonal on the right side of that back half moon nape area and diagonal on the opposite side, shorter in the center to longer on the outside. All right, let's go to step 2. Take a look at step 2 now. I'm going to give you step 2, and I want you to take a screenshot of step 2. Okay, so here comes step 2. Screenshot of this. Now, let's take a look at the schematics before we actually go in and do it, guys. All right, so I'm going to take the side area now from where we divided it. Remember, at Samvia, we divide this side area further back behind that ear so that we protect ourselves from a very dense area there. I'm going to elevate diagonally to the center back. So I'm going to over direct to the center back. Here, you can see what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut again, short to long, throwing short to long, throwing more length out here as I get. So I'm getting shorter on top and longer as I get to the perimeter edge of where the hair lives. So let's go to step 2. Okay, I'm going to give you a profile view. So I'm going to start on the right side. This is my right side. Okay, now where's my guide? My guide now comes from this center. So I lift this center. That is my guide. Okay, now watch how I'm going to take this back. Okay, and then watch how I'm going to go through. I see my guide, but I'm going to bypass that. See, I'm not going to blend that in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that guide right there to start my short to my long. Okay, so this is my guide. See that? Watch me pick up a piece. Here it is here. Okay, so now watch how, as I bring this back vertical, look at that. See how I bring this back vertical? Okay, so my comb is vertical. Now watch my comb shift to a diagonal. You can see it shifting to a diagonal. Okay, now watch me look at that little piece underneath. Okay, there's my little piece there. That's where this point of the angle starts on top. So I know it's going to start there. Now I go short to long. And I just simply flatten this out. Okay, and once again, all I'm doing is taking, and by doing this, I'm getting, once again, short to long that falls over that was short to long diagonally this way. What I love about this, guys, is look how this over direction, give you a back view of this, okay? Look how this over direction was to the center in a vertical fashion. There's the angle I cut, give you a profile view of the angle. Now watch it collapse. So here's my guide underneath. Look at that angle, match that, but I got longer sitting over that. Okay, so I'm detaching this, but a very disciplined way, guys. So it's really simple. Look how it's getting me this layered effect, really loose. But if I pick this up, blenders, stop it. If I pick this up, let's pick up this. It's not going to blend. I should have a gap inside there. There it is. You can just start to see my gap. There's the gap that drops. Okay, now we go to the opposite side. I find, Andrew, by what's one of the most important things, guys, is cutting this with control. And I really believe, SQ, that communication builds wealth. So at the chair, guys, when I talked about how it's so important that you are a teacher, now that I have a guide, all I'm going to do is take a slice to the right of center. Okay, and then I'm just going to elevate this up. See, I elevate that up, and then now I've got my guide. I can follow it straight out. So I don't need to be worried about where I start at the bottom once I cut one side. But I really believe that at the chair, it's so important that you be an educator now at the chair. You really have to educate your clients in terms of teaching them how they can work with it, teaching them how to understand the simple ways in terms of them achieving end results. Now, I'm lifting my elbow up like this so you can see. Okay, I want you to see the angle. Now watch that angle collapse. Okay, and now watch when I just tickle this. Let's just give this a little bit of a tickle motion here, guys. And you can just start to see that's happening. Okay, grease is on board. Look at that. Look at, see how what I love about this is, you know, if you take a look at this, look at the angle of the layering that I'm getting on that. I'll give it this way. You can just start to see how I'm getting that layering. But when I look at this, because it doesn't have a blending action all the way through, there's going to be a sense of more of expansion. When I think of Brigitte Bardot, that was one thing, is a sense of volume. Always had a sense of volume. Okay. Any questions so far, guys?
Yes,
Okay.
I mean, we have a question about like what kind of fabrics this would work best on.
Great question. All right. So I would suggest that, look at this fabric. Okay. And you can see it's got some nice natural texture to it. So something that's got, and that I really believe is why we're seeing a lot of people embracing their natural texture, is because we tend to be layering our haircuts a little bit more. They're getting their hair layered because of the requests. So one area that I would be concerned with is overly curly hair, extremely curly hair, a coil type of fabric. I would be a little cautious in terms of how you're disconnecting that. That is another class in itself. So I think you could go to something that has a nice soft curl, Andrew, from there to straight. This would work on. But anything that starts to get a little bit more extremely curly, that's another class in itself and another way that you go about layering that. Now, with that change, it would change, Andrew, if the client says, Sam, I stretch dry my hair all the time. Then what would you do, Sam? I would stretch dry this and I would cut it dry because that's how she wears it. Is that helping out, Andrew, in regards to that?
For sure. And our friend Juman, that's on every week, is asking, what is the degree of elevation on this section?
Okay, let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's go to the board, Andrew, on that. Look at the degree of elevation when I elevated that. That was diagonal, Juman. So allow me to help you here, my friend. Look, watch this. See, that's a horizontal line. Okay, take a look at that. Okay, that's a vertical line. Half of that is diagonal, or 45. So at Sam Villa, we refer to that vertical 90. We refer to this as a horizontal 90 for simplicity. And then we refer to that as a diagonal 45. Now, anything that happens inside of this, these two lines, that's your expression of creativity. So if I had finer hair, I might drop that elevation down slightly so I build more weight on fine hair. If I had thick, coarse hair, I might be lifting that higher so I get more degree of softness when that falls down. So in this particular case, step 2, that angle was 45 degrees, Schumann, or diagonal line in regards to the way it was elevated. All right, let's go to step 3. Okay, step 3, the side area now. So I'm going to work with all of this area that you see right here. This whole area right here, this is what I'm going to work with. Okay, now I want this area, this is where it gets really weak. And this is, because we're layering hair out a lot, this is where it gets really, really sparse. Okay, so you really, whenever, and here's a really cool thing to remember, my friends, whenever you want weight, you want length, pull away from it. The movement of over direction, just simply pull away from it. Because once I pull away from it, I get that, I can always come back and just kind of sketch in if I want some softness into this, whatever it happens to be that you're looking for, you just go in and do that. So we're working with this whole area here. Okay, we're elevating that back diagonally. And then I talked about if I had a fine hairline, Andrew, I would weave this area out here and I wouldn't pick this up into that. I'd elevate this up so that this hair here would all stay one length. Okay, then I come back and I just start to kind of like personalize it or detail it if I want an angle. Okay, in this particular case, watch what we're going to do now. Okay, we're going to take all of this area back. I'm going to elevate on diagonal. There's my elevation. Jaman, see that? So I'm elevating this diagonal. Write that in the chat box. Diagonal, guys. Diagonal. My finger angle, once again, is going to go diagonal. Okay, I'm going to look and see this piece that I have underneath here, and now I'm going to overlay that again, just like I did here. So it's almost 3 tiers of layering that I'm creating that are disconnected from each. So once again, straight back to the center. Okay, I'm going to grab this piece here. I'm going to place that underneath and see how that piece is. See, you can see it right here. I'm going to use that point as my start again for this angle on top. So I go there. There's that piece right there. From here, I flatten my shear and cut straight out. Okay. And what I love about this, guys, look at the length I've got in the front. Look at that. That's almost one length. So you see how, especially with fine hair, look at the shape I'm getting, the silhouette, especially with fine hair, it really protects that front. Be careful of that front. Okay. Yeah, carry 3 layers, but it's a multiple of layers. What I want you is 3 detached areas or 3 tiers, but visually, Terry, they're going to look like they blend. Okay, let's go to the opposite side now. Watch the opposite side. Okay, if you're learning, say yes. Okay, just type a yes in there. Opposite side now. Okay, so I'm here. Look how I come back, how I come through. Okay, now I don't need to pick up that short area, so all I know is I pick up a slice. There's my guide. Okay, and now from here, all I'm doing is going short to long, and I'm over directing to that center. Okay, let's give you a degree. Let's give you a view of the elevation. Okay, here you can see how I've got my guide. There's that short piece, and I almost flatten my hand out, but I'm on a diagonal, guys. Okay, toss my comb. All right, and you can see, you can see how you can work with a swivel. See, I'm taking my hand, or I can bring it this way. But in most cases, it stays straight. Andrew, go ahead, Andrew.
What would you think about using a razor for this kind of technique?
Oh, I think a razor is awesome for this because you're going to get a little bit more of a loose texture. You're going to get a little bit more of an explosion of volume in regards to layer because a razor it lightens the edge. But what determines whether or not you work with a razor is going to be the fabric. Let the fabric determine what you're going to work with. I'm going to pick up Wax Blast 10, and I'm not even going to go in. I'm just going to work this in with my hands, and I just want you to see the silhouette and what's happening with this. Okay, so what you should see almost like an A-line type of layered effect in this long hair. And what I love about this is it's taking hair away from where people want it taken away, and I'm leaving the hair length in fragile areas. Okay, now at this point, this is where you could come in. You could certainly dry this if you wanted to. Okay, I'm going to continue to keep going and let that just be. Okay, for the sake of time. Now I'm going to take this, pull that back. Pull this back. So what are you doing now, Sam? I'm isolating the underneath. Why? Because on the top, I'm going to detach this horseshoe from that. So 3 different steps so far that are detached from each other. So let's go to step 4. Okay. All right. Step 4. This is step 4 now. Okay. On step 4, what type of shape do you see up there? Okay. What type of shape do you see up here? This is called a what? We call this a what? Relates to a horse. I call it a, come on guys, type it in there. What is the fabric type? Takara, the fabric type that I'm working right now, it's got pretty good medium density. This particular mannequin is called a Maddie from Pivot Point. Has pretty good density. I'd say about a medium density, about a medium texture between coarse to fine, but not quite fine. Okay, horseshoe, yeah, crown. So the crown, it's the crown and the top I'm combining together in a horseshoe section. Okay, now let's take a look at what we're going to do. We're going to divide this in half. Divide it in what? Half. Come on, type it in. Half. So now I'm going to divide it from the high point. So from that high point to that green vertical line that I had, I'm going to divide that. So I've got the back half and the front half. Now let's take a look at what we're going to do here. Watch. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this, and I want you to watch now, right there. So all of this hair is going to go back to that. Then this will float over, and this becomes my guide. Now all of this comes to that. So that's why I'm dividing this in half. So everything here goes back to back of the head. Everything from the front perimeter hairline goes to the high point. So I'm going to move with my guideline. And here, what's really important is your point cutting. Why? Because I'm cutting blonde hair. With blonde hair, I can see everything. Now, this is at a point, guys, where I would recommend when you get to this point here, start talking to the client in terms of, products and what they're going to be working with. I think that is critical. So critical. Okay. Now here's what's unique in this is I'm working with a tail comb, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to weave it. So I weave my sections. So I'm going to get a softer edge. Okay. So I want you to take a look at the weave. Okay. So all I did was weave that. Okay. Now, every section I cut, I'm going to have a guide, but every section is going to weave. It's going to give me a little bit more of a softer edge rather than me taking solid sections all the way through that, guys. All right. Now, let's talk about guide. This will tend to overlap what I've created underneath. So here's the underneath. There's my length. Now I'm going to overlap that just slightly. About how much are you overlapping that, Sam? I would probably say about 2 inches. About 2 inches, I'm going to overlap that. All right. Now look how I'm coming in, and I'm working with our 7-inch, and I'm not working with a dry cutting shear. I am working with a dry cutting shear, but I'm working with that hair, and I've been letting it dry on its own. I have not gone through and continue to wet it. Okay. Sam, if you're working like this, is there any product that you would work with? I would tend to work with my One United from Redken. Okay. I'm going to take the sectioning comb, the sectioning tooth of the cutting comb, and now watch me just bounce in and out. Okay. And once again, this is going to give me that weave. Okay. In that top. Now I simply watch how I'll take a guide of what I just cut. And once again, following that guide that I have and over directing back, I come through, lay it with gravity. I'm going to give you an angle of my shear. And my shear this season is much more straight up and down into this. And I'll move left to right, right to left, until I get all that length off that I want to take off. Now, notice that shear is not so much at an angle this season, because I've got a lot of length up here that I want to keep soft, especially on this blonde. The more angle I go, the more I'm going to come in. The more I'm going to come in, and I'm going to cut too much of a hard edge. So what's important with the angle of the shear? Keep it more what? More diagonal or vertical into the section. Write that down. Notice how I'll go in, keep the comb flat, just bounce it in. That'll give you the weave. Once you're here, take a section of what you just cut. Okay. And once again, what I love about this is just helping me to get a really, once again, soft edge. When you layer blonde hair, give you a back view. When you layer blonde hair, you know you're going to see those cutting edges. Okay. My section I'm working across here is a weaved horizontal section. Everything here, now this is my last section, is over directed to that back of the head. So I'm over directing this first half to a stationary guide. Okay. And then what I love about this, guys, once again, long layers. Okay. Now I'm back at that front, that ear. So I'm going to start to now over direct to just over the ear, continue to take and weave. Okay. And now to the ear. Look where I'm at. See, I'm not back here. Now I'm straight up and take a section of what I just cut. That acts as my guide. See my guide. And cut. Andrew, I find a lot of times when I cut like this, I have to be very relaxed, meaning I have to really relax my mindset. And I think that's so important, guys, when you do that. A lot of times, too, when I do this, Andrew, people say to me, they go, well, Sam, I don't pre-section. I pre-section this, guys, for control. So I think anytime you're coming through and you're going to start to come through and you're going to detach or tier your layers out, which is, I think, is a great way to cut layers now. I'm moving away from blended layers and then coming in and texturizing so much. So what I'm doing is getting to my end result with the textured result at the same time. My last section to over the ear. Okay.
Sammy, what size are your sections?
My sections, I'd say probably consistently about a 1/2 inch. But remember, I'm weaving them. So how far you push in and go like this, that's going to determine the depth of that section. So if you've got little hair, like I've got thick hair, push in. If I got kind of a little bit more medium defined, just kind of weave it just slightly. And I hope that makes sense. Okay. Now take a look, watch what's going to happen. And you'll see the shape just happen in regards to the way that it works regards to the silhouette. Now watch, I should have a lot of length here in that front, and you're just going to start to see this bob effect. There it is there. See that bob effect just pop on top of this length. And that to me is what I'm looking for this particular shape. So you get this. Now watch when I start to go profile. You're really going to see it when I go profile. One of the things that I liked about Brigitte Bardot was her volume seemed to tilt back. Now watch when I go profile. Okay, see it? Okay, I'm going to bring my computer down so you can see the entire. Okay. And this is what I'm talking about, guys, in terms of that. Now I'm going to come through and I'm just going to diffuse this now, because I want to go through and just see the natural movement that I have, Andrew, on that, and talk a little bit about my hands as a tool when I'm going through and diffusing. So now let's go to product of choice. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to work with my Redken Outshine 01. And I want this because I want this to have some movement to it, guys. That's what I'm looking for. I want that to have some movement. So I'm not looking for any kind of like gel or something like that to go in there and take care of that. Okay. And then watch how if I want, I could come in, cut a fringe into this if I wanted to. But I think right now, Andrew, we're just seeing a lot of long layers in terms of what you're seeing. Okay. I'm going to just give me a little bit more moisture with my One United.
Sammy, the question that always comes up with these detached haircuts is when they come back in 5 to 6 weeks and want this redone, what do we do?
All right. That's a great question. You're going to follow the same pattern. What I've discovered, guys, by going and cutting these detached haircuts, they're so easy to recut. Because think about it. There's your face. Think about it. The way that I cut this was a little bit more kind of, it's detached. Those sections are all detached. So when you go through and you comb it up against gravity, all the sections fall out. Now, let's go past that, though. And SQ, I want you to listen to this. What's so important, guys, is when a client comes back, stop worrying about trying to create the same haircut. It's never going to happen. I'll give you somewhat the same silhouette, but it's not going to be the exact same haircut. You ever hear that? Can I have the exact same thing? I loved it. Okay. Something's going to change. Something is going to change in regards to what you're doing. So I recommend this. Follow your pattern. And as long as you're close to your pattern, you're going to get it. But I would ask this question. I would ask the client, tell me what you liked about it and what you disliked about it. That's the question I would be asking the client. Let me repeat that. Tell me what you liked about this haircut and what you disliked about this haircut. Now, when you ask her, tell me what you disliked. That's the first question I'd ask. Because when I ask that question, Andrew, it shows genuine concern. Like I'm really, well, Sam, I loved it. Okay, great. Well, why are you asking me what I disliked about it? Because if there's anything I want to know if there's anything you disliked about it, I want to make the proper adjustment to it. And I think that is what's critical, guys. So the idea, once again, is tell me what you disliked, okay? Then tell me what you liked about it. Then you simply adjust accordingly. So a lot of times, let me say this. Give you an example. When I go through and I cut hair with a razor, I'll cut it with the razor, but the next time she comes back, I'm cutting it and refreshing it and point cutting it with a shear. So here's texture. Watch this. There's texture. You just texturize her. Now she comes back. She says she wants more texture. You can't recut these same little hairs here, guys. So what happens is you go back, you retouch, you say, yeah, I'll retouch you. Now you end up like this. You see that? So what I want to do is this. That's texture. Now let's point cut the edge. On her second visit, there. Now third visit, let's texture. Fourth visit, let's point cut. You see, I keep adjusting. You see that? That's what I think is important to control texture. Now, I want you to join me on February the 22nd, on Tuesday. I'm going to have a whole idea where I'm going to talk about texturizing techniques, okay? And I'm going to talk about texturizing techniques in regards to, what technique do you use on what fabric and when do you use it? I think that's important. A lot of times we just forget. Okay, we fall in love with a technique and we're using that technique on every texture, and it doesn't belong in every texture. Okay, so join me for that. Diffuser. Okay, now watch what I'm going to do with the diffuser. Okay, I'm going to put it on low so you can hear me. I'm going high heat, but I want you to watch my hands. Okay, let's go here first. Okay, think about what I want to achieve. Look at my hand. You see the hand? Now watch how I'm gonna come in, but I'm gonna allow the diffuser to do the work. Now a lot of times when I diffuse, we talk about keep your hands out of the hair. But I'm using my hand more as a mold. So I want to mold in that particular movement. You see that? So all I'm doing is I just come in and I'm working with my fingers. So look how I'll come through and I just work with my pinky, there, and now squeeze, and now diffuse. So once again, what I really like about this technique, by working with your hand as the brush or as a molding tool, it allows you to get a little bit more of that lived-in texture. And that lived-in texture tends to becoming very popular now, but I think there's certain areas, as we know, where sometimes you just got to help it. Okay? You just start to see the texture I'm getting out of that. So my products of choice were Outshine 01 from Redken. You could use a mousse, a lotion, or a gel, product of your choice. I based the product of choice based upon the fabric I'm working with, based upon the end result, based upon the control I want. How much control do I want? That really will determine what fabric I work with and how I'm going to work with it. Okay. Okay, now watch. I've just done a couple sections here, guys, and you can just start to see this area that I've done. Look at the movement I'm getting out of that in regards to that. And basically, you're just going through this whole thing process of doing that. Now, I want to show you an end result with a Bardo Fringe. And what I love about this is the idea, once again, is here's a Bardo Fringe end result. Okay. Somewhat same approach to it, although on this one, I applied this fringe. And that's basically all I've done that's different between the two. Okay. So when we talk about a Bardo Fringe, it's basically you're seeing this where I've got a triangle section, but it's another triangle that's actually cut inside of this. All right. And I've been doing a lot of Bardo Fringes that are very much like this. Okay. But I think that's really important, guys, that you understand that when you do these things, it's all about trusting yourself. So you've got to trust the idea of the process. Like detaching haircuts may seem like it's a scary thing, okay? And it can be scary because it's not what I was taught. But I have to tell you, guys, I've moved from an iPhone 1 to now an iPhone 12, and it's because of the things that I continue to learn. Now, look at as I'm working with this. This is just basically, I just diffused just a little bit of this, but now you can just start to see, look at that volume that I'm getting on that. Let's take away this side, Andrew, so they can really get to see. You can just start to see the silhouette on that. So the idea, once again, is just a different type of volume that gives you a little bit more frothiness. And then when I look at that silhouette, I just love the way this is drawing. When I look at that silhouette, there's the silhouette. Okay, I'll give you down a little bit more. Move her out of the way. Okay, there we go. Okay, and you can just start to see how this is great because watch, if I pulled this back, if I pulled all of this back and I let this fall out like this, she's going to have a little bob. Okay. Let's see, find her face. And you can just start to see how you can just play with this cut in a lot of different ways. All right. Questions? Any questions, guys, on this? How many of you learned something on here today in regards to this? Okay. Just write in there if you learned something, just write the word learn. Okay. All right. So let's recap. All right. So I'm going to clip this away. Only because I didn't dry this side. I want you to focus on the side that I dried here. Okay. There. All right. There we go. All right. Cool. All right, so let's recap, Andrew. Here's what we did, guys. We did our sectioning first. Now, on the sectioning, take a snapshot of these if you haven't got the sectioning. Okay, this is sectioning. I'll move her out of the way. So I took a horseshoe section, took my back to front. At Sam Villa, we take that side section a little further back to protect ourselves with this ear area. This was interesting. It was more of an upside down horseshoe section, horizontal curve. That's a half moon down. Okay, give me more softness. Okay, and then step one, basically what we did was take a snapshot of that. Okay, step one, what we did was we came in, we elevated vertically. Everything from that nape area came up to that. We over directed at the corners and we elevated. Now look at the angle. We cut short to long, short in the center. So we cut diagonal. That's important. That gives us more length behind that ear. Then we came in and then step two, we worked with that side area, the back area. Okay. So here's step two. All I simply did was take the side area, okay, over directed that to the center area here. And then I went from short to long, short to long. Okay, let's take a snapshot of that. Step two. Okay, now step three. Okay, step three, I took that side area. I gave you a couple scenarios here. If I had a fine hairline, you got to be careful how you layer this area out. Zigzag that hairline, drop it out, go into your diagonal degree of elevation, diagonal finger angle, over directed to center back, and then come back and address this. So can you see how easy I got this? Okay, but now I could come in and I could cut an angle into this if I wanted to. Okay, maybe that's going to be the next step for her appointment. I don't know, guys. In regards to that, let's give you a little view once again of that back, and then let's go to step four. Okay, step four, take a snapshot of this. Okay, step four, divide that in half. So I corrected my sketch over here, divide it in half, everything from that background area to just off the head, elevated vertically, over directed diagonally. That gave me a new guide, high point of the head, front of the hairline, over directed to a stationary guide. Once again, using your guide, stationary. And working horizontal. And remember, point cutting. Point cut more vertical into that rather than going diagonal. Diagonal is just going to create too much of a hard line. Okay? Questions, Andrew? Concerns?
Lots of appreciation for the learning, that's for sure. I do remember I did miss a question above just about the detachment with someone that maybe has super straight hair, or if it's someone that tends to straighten their hair perfectly straight, if the detachment will be more apparent within that kind of super straight fabric.
Great question. I really think that you have to watch your elevation. So just remember this, guys. Anytime I elevate the hair horizontally or below a horizontal line, anywhere on the head, that's going to fall with more weight. So what happens is you're going to see your weight lines. You're going to see your edges a little bit more. Anytime I elevate the hair above a horizontal line, anywhere on the head. So see how this hair is above the horizontal line here? Now I could do that here. I could go diagonal here. That's above a horizontal line. Anytime I elevate above a horizontal line, I'm going to get a softer edge. So now, if you're concerned about hard edges in your layers, stop pulling out, even if you're cutting vertically, stop pulling out horizontally, elevate it vertically, and it's going to fall soft. Elevate it diagonally, it's going to fall softer. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the point I'm trying to make here, it's the degree of elevation that's creating the hard lines. Watch this, Andrew. This is going to get them. This is going to get them. Okay, Andrew, come on here, board with me, buddy. Come back with me. Okay, good. Watch this, Andrew. Okay, cutting men's hair. Okay, let me see if I can get myself there. Andrew, this is not easy in here. Okay, watch this. Okay, here, I'll just use one comb. Okay, scissor over comb, Andrew. When you cut scissor over comb, you keep moving the comb, correct? And you keep moving the scissor. So whether you know it or not, thank you, Andrew, you're cutting, when you close that scissor, that hair is elevated in a diagonal position. If you close that scissor when the hair is elevated horizontally or slightly diagonal because you're not moving your scissor and your comb simultaneously, when you comb it down, it's got steps. Mm-hmm. So you're wondering, why do I have steps? So can you see, even when I'm cutting men's hair, are you kidding me, Sam? Yes, That's why Andrew would always tell me, Sammy, keep your comb and shear moving stable together. The moment they don't move stable together and I just slow down and I close, now that piece of section of hair was elevated horizontally. Now it falls with a step. Did that make sense, guys? Okay. Type yes in the chat box if it did. How do you get or find a cut from Sam or a trained SV stylist? Anybody out there SV trained? Been to any of my classes? Write your name down. Direct message Noni McCarthy, where she's from, etc. Somebody cut her hair for her. Okay, what other questions, guys? Any other questions?
I think we covered everything that I saw back here, Sammy.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right, fantastic. All right, let me leave you with this, guys, in regards to, let's go that last slide there, Andrew. Okay, now take a look at these two looks. Okay, these two looks that I did here, the one below was cut in 2010. Andrew actually did the one above, and he cut that one in the upper left circle. That's a kind of an inspiration of a Bardot. It's layered. You get lots of volume, but you got this fringe, these bangs going inside there. And then you can see how there's an overlap over that fringe. But that was cut by Andrew. And look, you can see the similarities in this. One might be a little bit more overly layered than the other, but a lot of similarities in terms of that. So here's what I'm talking about. These are two looks that we did. Andrew did the above one 2 years ago, Andrew?
It was 18. I think we did that shoot.
18, yeah. And then the other one below, 2010. So here's the message. The past is where we learn. The future is where we apply it. And I mean, timeless, guys. These things are timeless. So my message this morning is don't get caught in one haircut. Don't get caught in one look. Continue to explore, reach to the past, because there's a lot of gems back there. A lot of people say, well, Sam, when I try something new, it just doesn't work. I fall. You know what, guys? It's okay. If it doesn't work, when you fall down, you're falling down for a reason. There's something down there that you need to look at and rediscover. And maybe it's not, you don't need it, then stand back up. Or maybe when you stand back up, you're going to stand up with that something that it is that you found down there, and you're going to be able to fix it. But the point I'm trying to make is continue to keep practicing. Try again, and try again.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much, Sammy. That was amazing. Killer education as always. And guys, I know that there was a lot of you wanting to see the flip charts once again. So do remember that you can go back and re-watch the video anytime you want and go back and re-screenshot those head sheets. So
yeah. I'll just put them like this, Andrew, for them one more time, and they can kind of, I'm not sure it's going to fit across your screen, but I'll do it like this, buddy. And see if they can get it. How's that? Yeah. Let me get out. There you go. So everything's there for you guys. Take a screenshot of that. I got to tell you, Andrew, we got a great back team back there. Look at somebody writing the cutting steps. Who's that? Katie or Dana? Love you guys.
Probably Katie.
Yeah. Katie, you're awesome.
Our in-house hairdresser.
All right, brother. Let them know what's coming up with Sam Villa. Thank you, Andrew. You're always a joy to see and be with, my friend. Have a great day. Everybody, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Remember, respect yourselves and respect each other. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Sammy.